I've laid out our ingredients, which are really very simple. We only have 3 ingredients. One is flour, one is water, and the other is thyme. I use 25 grams of flour each time I add to the starter. So we're going to start with 25 grams of flour, and we're going to use equal weights of flour and water as we proceed through the next 4 days. You can use any jar. This just happens to be one that I have to hand. You need a lid of some description. Plastic is better, or something that can release air, because as the starter becomes active, it's going to produce gas, and you don't want a situation where you have a jar exploding on you. If you don't have a lid, but you do have a jar or a bowl or something like that that you want to use, just put a little piece of plastic over it and put a rubber band around it or something like that. What I do is simply pour the water in, pour the flour in, and stir it up. There are naturally occurring yeasts and bacteria on the flour. Even my finger that I'm using, clean finger, on the spoon has got yeast and bacteria. And a starter will always transform itself to reflect the ecosystem of the environment that it's in. Everybody's starter is unique. So once you've done that, all you do is mark off where that is. And the reason I do this is to see the extent to which your starter is becoming active. You can use a piece of tape or anything you want. A rubber band works well. I just happen to have this nice piece of string. So I've tied that around at the level at which the mixture of flour and water finds itself. And that's it. We'll come back tomorrow and see what's happened. Good morning, friends. Here we are on day 2. Let's take a look at our starter and see what's happened in the last 24 hours. What we actually find is that it hasn't risen at all. Now that is to be expected, and it is totally normal. I would have been surprised if we had seen it rise at all. So just as we did on day 1, we will add another 25 grams of flour and another 25 grams of water to our jar and to the 24-hour-old starter. Mix that up, and we'll leave it again for another 24 hours. Just quickly mix that up. There's nothing fancy or tricky about this. Finger to get that off. Put the lid back on, or piece of plastic with a rubber band or such. Make sure that your string or piece of tape indicates the level you're at. And that's it. We'll see you tomorrow. Here we are, morning of day 3. Let's take a look at how our sourdough starter is behaving. As you can see by the string that we wrapped around it, the starter has risen appreciably. So probably risen by about 1/3. Let's take a look at what's going on inside this jar. Oh yeah, you can see there bubbles are forming. It's quite glutinous. But that's where we are. We can see that we have a fairly healthy sourdough starter that is beginning to come together. So for day 3, we do exactly what we've done previous 2 days. I'm going to add 25 mils of water, and I'm going to add 25 grams of flour. I'm going to just stir this up. It's quite dough-like, so I just want to get that water mixed in there a little bit and break up that structure. And now that I've completed that, put the flour in, mix that up, and that's it. So I would expect this by day 4, which is tomorrow, to have risen significantly, perhaps even twice its size. And that, if that is the case, it will indicate that we're reaching a point where we're ready to start using this for baking. Hi friends, here we are, day 4 of our sourdough starter. As you can see by our string, sourdough has risen appreciably overnight. It's going to be ready for using in baking in the next day or 2. So now we're on day 4. I'm going to simply repeat what I have done for each other day, which is to add 25 mils of water and 25 grams of flour, and I will mix that up. This will become increasingly sort of stringy and aerated, this kind of a look, as time goes on, and the gluten strands that are holding this whole thing together will become weakened as the sourdough culture itself takes hold and actually eats the flour. All right, simply put the lid on, leave it until tomorrow. So that is how you create a starter in 4 days. By the end of day 5, what is in this jar will be sufficiently viable to use to bake bread.